Muy buenas tardes. Siendo las 16:03, les saluda el profesor Cristian Cristóful, coordinador del Departamento de Lengua Inglesa del Instituto Superior de Lenguas en calidad de moderador. Se da inicio a la defensa virtual de Tesina, acorde a la resolución número 1503/2024, que fija conformación de mesa examinadora de la Tesina con el título Teachers' Perceptions and Attitudes Towards Hybrid Classes During the COVID-19 Pandemic at a Private Bilingual School in Asunción, Paraguay, a cargo de la autora Laura Verónica Velazquez Gracia, de la carrera de Lengua Inglesa del Instituto Superior de Lenguas, el día de hoy, lunes 7 de abril del 2025. En calidad de presidente de mesa nos acompaña la profesora Cintia Rolón. ¿Cómo está, profesora?
Buenas tardes, profesor. Muy bien y espero que usted y los demás profesores también. Laura, espero que estés muy bien y lista para darnos una presentación excelente. Yes? Okay, so I'm going to continue now in English, and now you are going to have 30 minutes for your defense, and afterwards we're going to ask you some questions. So the screen and the microphone is all yours. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Welcome to my presentation. I am going to share my screen now. Thank you all for being here. So I'm going to share my entire screen because that's what I was testing with Mr. Christoffel, and that's my mom joining. Okay, let's see. All right. So thank you all for being here. This is my defense to obtain my bachelor's degree in the English language. The title of my study is Teachers' Perceptions and Attitudes Towards Hybrid Learning at a Private Bilingual School in Asunción, Paraguay. Okay. First, a little bit of background that I'm going to give. After the pandemic was declared by the World Health Organization, classes shifted to fully virtual. And a while passed, schools started to slowly find a way to open again. And that's when the hybrid or blended learning started. And I want to state the difference between hybrid and blended learning. In blended learning, schools and in a classroom, the technology implementation is a complement for the classes. It's not like in the hybrid model where students are attending classes virtually and presentially at the same time. That is the difference. And for this thesis, the study was focused on the hybrid model of education, okay? Now, the University of Central Florida had highlighted key factors for a blended learning success, which included common alignment of goals across all divisions in the school, a good infrastructure for implementing the model, and constant evaluation of and assessment of the model to see if it was working. Public schools and private schools had different experiences for continuing classes during the crisis. Public schools probably had limited access to resources and technology, whereas private schools had better access, maybe more resources and more technological tools to continue classes. For the statement of the problem, perception cannot be isolated from sociocultural aspects. Teachers were experiencing the same as the rest of the world was experiencing during the pandemic. So they were also going through the crisis, and teachers' perceptions play an undeniable role in students' lives, according to Jackson. So it is important to analyze the perceptions and attitudes that teachers have on such a change as hybrid learning is, and also analyze these perceptions and how they can impact the life of students. For the purpose of the study, it was to examine teachers' perceptions on the hybrid learning model. The specific objectives were to describe whether teachers felt comfortable using technology for instruction, to explore teachers' perceptions on how hybrid classes affected the delivery of the lesson, and to describe the overall outcome of hybrid learning. The research questions were: what are teachers' perceptions of hybrid learning at a private bilingual school in 2021? To what extent did teachers feel comfortable with using technology for giving classes in a hybrid learning model? And how do teachers perceive that hybrid learning affects the delivery of the lesson and the overall outcome? For the significance, this study aimed to contribute to the limited data in Paraguay regarding the implementation of the hybrid learning model, especially focusing on how teachers perceive this model in school. It also provided opportunity for more research in the area of hybrid learning in the country. For the limitations and ethical concerns, the school was one that has access to technology as an everyday resource. Teachers and students have access to technology every day. Um, the school is not representative to all schools, or the teachers are not representative to all teachers. Also, the instrument we used might not be accurate for analyzing the educational phenomena. However, the number of teachers that the participants were a big portion of the teachers of the school, so they ended up being representative for the school being studied. As of ethical concerns, the names and institutions were not mentioned in the study, and there was also a permission letter submitted to the school prior to conducting the study there. Okay, now the literature review. It was divided in four main sections, and I'm gonna try to briefly talk about the four of them. The first one is COVID-19 outbreak and its impact on education. So Davis et al. Found that teachers and schools face challenges such as anxiety, self-esteem issues, and lack of motivation. They also found that it impacted the life of students. It interrupted processes like college applications, job interviews, and daily routines that they had, okay, in their houses. Pockrell and Chetri, they found that teachers needed training on technological tools, and they also found an area where schools could invest for all faculty, which was teacher training. Tades and Muluye found challenges in developing countries, which included lack of internet access, poor infrastructure, and limited resources. For planning during the outbreak, in Greece, teachers were not able to plan accordingly because all their planning time was taken for digital tools training, and they could not have their planning time. Moody, Nurkolis, and Yulia Yantingish. So they found that teachers' plans were not meant for online classes, and teachers did not receive the proper training for online planning. Kim, Ousley, and Asbury were studying mental health during the crisis, and they found that teachers felt anxious about planning due to extensive workload, and they felt pressured about the planning. Herwin et al., they found that in Indonesia, they were applying a simplified version of the curriculum, which contained only the essential competencies that were crucial for teaching, and this made the planning easier and more flexible. The second section is attitudes and perceptions. Gall, and Borg define attitude as a measure of viewpoints towards a person or thing. Diona and Teroni stated in their book that perception is the way we access color, size, shape of the objects that are in our immediate sight. Saed mentioned in his book that attitudes and perceptions towards technology can change or improve by defining the problem and creating SMART goals, among other suggestions. And as of teachers' perceptions, Tamarana, Sadono, and Bachi found that teachers had a positive attitude towards technology and the implementation of informational communication technologies and learning management systems. Now, it is important to say that these studies were conducted before the pandemic, right? Civelec, Toplu, Usun, and Moralista Noducado conducted a study during the pandemic, and they found that the pandemic generated negative attitudes in teachers, such as uncertainty, McWhirter in 2020 concluded in his study that strong institutional support fostered positive attitudes in teachers. Sorry. Oh. So the third section is hybrid learning, which is the combination of virtual classes and in-person learning as described by Bolins in Bowyer's article. It originated in the 70s and in the 80s at Stanford University, where they wanted to present the class at different places at the same time, so they used a video network to do so. It has benefits such as improved outcomes, student retention, and engagement. And teachers, this is like a setback or a disadvantage, is that teachers found it hard to balance attention between both groups, the online and the virtual and the presential. And also technology preparation was an issue. For a learning management system, it is a software or a platform that provides a way to deliver content. In the subject school, we have the middle school platforms and elementary platforms that were used. Google Classroom was a platform used in the subject school, so I did a little bit of research on it. Rahim, Aprilia, and Adi, in their studies, they found that Google Classroom was highly effective for hybrid learning, although unfamiliarity was a challenge for these studies. In elementary school, Seesaw was a learning management system that was used. And Sofa, Dudung, Drenan, and Taufik Rachman found that it enhanced engagement and learning outcomes. But Anderson, in his study, found that it had limited communication tools for parents and teachers. For the video call applications, Zoom was one that was used in the subject school for imparting classes virtually during the hybrid period. So some advantages were that Zoom offered interesting tools like screen sharing, the mute and unmute button, and that it fostered a sense of community according to Dantes, Cheong, Lapitan, and Conke and Morehouse. It also facilitated interactive learning and adaptability. It allowed real-time explanations, and it encouraged interaction among students, according to Sugma, Priyana, and Senve. Some disadvantages were that it could have technical limitations, like internet connectivity and the lack of subject-specific features. Math teachers, if they needed to teach something that required a symbol, the Zoom application didn't have that symbol. Okay. Chiang, Ramadani, Safari, Lapitan, Rahayu, and Wisra, in their study, they found that it reduced teacher-student interactions. If there was a teacher having a large group, there were trouble managing those large groups. And there was also the integrity concern. Students could easily cheat on tests and just copy assignments. The fourth section of the literature review is Paraguayan decrees and resolutions. We have the suspension of classes in 2020. Resolution 308 established the suspension of classes for 15 days for all staff, students, staff meaning directive staff, teaching staff, administrative staff. Then Resolution 375 established the extension of the suspension until April the 19th. And then Resolution 382 established the voluntary return for 12th grade students, always continuing the virtual classes for the students that remained at home. Then, for reopening schools after the outbreak, in March 18th, 2021, came out the Decree for a Safe Return, which, through a hybrid or virtual model, always adhering to the protocols and sanitary measures, schools could reopen following the SAFE protocol for attendance. The SAFE protocol for attendance granted that parents could send or not send, that means opt in or opt out for the hybrid model. And it established that for the schools, they should implement the bubble system, which was that one group stayed at home in a week and the other group attended. And it changed, so that reduced the number of students weekly. Okay, always adhering to the sanitary measures. Again, the mandatory use of masks, the distancing between desks, teachers, the lines, and all the sanitary measures. All right, for methods. The type of study was a quantitative descriptive study focused on a small group of teachers using a scale to measure the perceptions. It used descriptive survey research, which is used to describe and gather people's perceptions, opinions, and attitudes about a certain topic. For the sending and participants, it was a private bilingual school in Asunción. Students and teachers had access to technology as an everyday resource. The school provided the technological tools, equipments, and resources for the teachers, as well as the sanitary measures and everything that the teachers needed in terms of the safety protocol. Also, the school provided the opportunity for the learning management systems used. Students could opt in or out to be on campus every day, like parents could opt to be virtual or presential, but the teachers required to be on campus every day. For the sampling method, it used purposeful sampling because the participants were chosen because they were relevant to the topic being studied. And yeah, it was purposeful sampling. For the data collection, a Likert scale was used, which is a scale that poses questions or items that participants respond to, selecting the number or option that best represents their response. In this case, it was strongly agree, slightly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Why did I choose a Likert scale? Because it was an accessible way to collect the data and it was purposeful for the subject school and the participants. So talking a little bit more about my Likert scale, there are 17 questions or statements. I keep saying questions, there are statements. They were divided in 3 categories, each category responding to one of the research questions. And I am going to read each question and the statements that go with each question, because for practical matters, I'm not going to be explaining each statement for the results, okay? So I'm going to start with the first one. What are teachers' perceptions on hybrid learning at a private school in 2021? So having hybrid classes during the 2021 school year was a positive experience. I felt overwhelmed by the hybrid period teaching during the 2021 school year because of the workload. Planning for the hybrid classes during the 2021 school year was easy. It was possible to go through all the topics in the curriculum during hybrid classes. Having hybrid classes did not impact other areas of my life. And I felt I had good support from the school regarding technology for hybrid classes. For the research question number 2, to what extent do teachers feel comfortable with technology for giving classes? We have, it was not difficult, stressful for me to have hybrid classes on a video call application. It was not difficult, stressful to have hybrid classes using a learning management system platform. I felt comfortable teaching in a hybrid classroom using technological tools. I felt comfortable using a video call application to teach. It was hard for me to plan for the group online. I felt I could manage the technological tools with online and face-to-face students. I felt I had good management of my technological skills to impart classes. The third research question is, how do teachers perceive that hybrid learning affects the delivery of the lesson? And the statements were, my students were successful in understanding what they were taught. My students in person were more successful than my students online. My students online were more successful than my students in person. And it was hard for me to focus on the group online when giving classes to the in-person group. So I'm sorry for the lot of reading. These were all the statements for my Likert scale. For the data analysis, it used descriptive statistics, which is used to summarize and organize data from self-developed instruments. the Likert scale was developed by me. In educational practices, descriptive statistics help describe patterns in teacher students' performances. Okay. So now we're gonna go into the results. Okay, in this part, I wanna explain a little bit because this graphic is not something that you're going to see in my thesis like book in the work, because it's not something that I did there, but I put it here just to have it for you to see a general view of all the statements and the results, because I'm not going to be talking about each and every one of them for the results. I chose for each category, I chose the most relevant ones in my opinion to talk about, that I think they best answer each of my research questions. Okay. The first one is teachers' perception of hybrid learning. That's the first question. And this is the first statement that I want to talk about. Having hybrid classes during the 2021 school year was a positive experience. For this statement and this result, we have 34.1 of the respondents and 14.6 that either disagree or strongly disagree with the statement, meaning that it was not a positive experience for them. Then we have 34.1 that slightly agree and 17.1 that agree. That is a little bit more than half of the respondents that believe it was for them a positive experience. But for this question, the perceptions were in fact divided, to my surprise. For the next one, I want to talk about planning. Planning for the hybrid classes in 2021 was easy. 53.7 of the respondents disagreed with this notion, and 24.4 strongly disagree with this notion, meaning that, in their opinion, it was not easy to plan during this period. Only 2.4 and 12.2 strongly agreed or agreed, and 7.3 slightly agreed, revealing that overall planning was not easy during hybrid period. And this also relates to what I found in my literature review. Teachers found it, in general, they found it hard to plan during these crisis periods. It was not easy to plan. The next one, I felt I had good support from the school in terms of technology for hybrid classes. This one is an interesting one to me because a good portion of the teachers have an interesting view. 58.5 of the respondents agree to this notion, 7.3 strongly agree, and 19.5 slightly agree. Okay, revealing that they did feel they had a good support from the school in terms of technology for imparting the classes, and only 12.2 and 2.4 disagree with this notion, revealing that a great portion of the teachers felt that they had good support from the school. And these make sense to me because, like I mentioned in the setting and participants, the school was one that provided for the teachers. They provided technology tools, technology resources. So here we can see how the teachers felt about that, about the school providing for them. This is the second category of the Likert scale, teachers and technology. Again, these are the 7 questions or statements that go with this research question. I'm not going to be explaining each one of them, but I'm going to choose the most relevant ones, in my opinion. The first one, it was not difficult, stressful for me to have hybrid classes on a video call application. 36.6 disagree with this notion, and 29.3 strongly disagree, meaning that for them, it was stressful to have hybrid classes on a video call application. Only 24.4 and 2.4 and 7.3 either slightly agree or strongly agree that it was not difficult, but most of the teachers revealed that it was in fact difficult to use a video call application to impart hybrid classes. In this one, It was not difficult, stressful to have hybrid classes using a learning management platform. This is a bit different. 48.8 of the respondents disagreed. It was difficult and stressful to use a learning management system platform. 4.9 strongly disagreed as well. But then we have a little bit less than half, 26.8 that slightly agreed it was not difficult, 17.1 that agreed that it was not difficult, and then 2.4 that strongly agreed it was not difficult. I can say that many teachers disagree with this notion, but results here are a little bit mixed. The next one, I felt I had good management of my technological skills to impart classes. This one is another one that really is interesting to me because, so 43.9 of the teachers agreed with this notion, 12.2 strongly agreed, and a big portion, 34.1, slightly agreed. Only 9.8 disagreed. These results are telling me that the teachers felt that even though using video call applications was stressful, using maybe a learning management system could also be stressful, they felt that they could manage their skills, their technological skills to impart the classes. So this one was interesting to me. The next one, I felt I could manage the technological tools with online and face-to-face students. Here again, I can see something similar. 39% of the teachers agreed with this notion, 2.4 also strongly agreed, and 24.4 slightly agreed again. So these results also reveal that the teachers felt an overall good management of their technological skills to impart the classes. This is the last category of the Likert scale, teachers' perceptions on hybrid learning and the delivery of the lesson. Again, I'm going to choose only the most relevant ones to talk about. I think that respond to the question best. My students were successful in understanding what they were taught. 53.7 slightly agreed with this one, and 26.8 agreed. Only 19.5 disagreed with this notion. Teachers overall felt that the students were understanding what they were taught. So this is also an interesting one. The teachers felt that with everything that was going on, they were doing a good job at teaching, managing the online classes, the online students and the in-person students. They felt that they were doing a good job because they felt that the students were understanding what they were taught. But my students in person were more successful than my students online. This one is a big one. 43.9 strongly agreed, 36.6 agreed, 17.1 slightly agreed, and only 2.4 disagreed. This one is an interesting one because teachers really felt that the in-person students were benefiting more from the teaching than the students that were virtually assisting the classes. And this is the last one. It was hard for me to focus on the group online when giving classes to the in-person group. Again, 43.9 of the respondents strongly agreed, and 39% agreed, 14.6 slightly agreed, revealing that it was, in fact, hard to balance the attention between both groups. This is something that I also found in the literature review when I was doing a lot of research. Teachers found it hard to balance the attention between the virtual students and the in-person students. So for the discussion, for research question number 1, what are teachers' perceptions of hybrid learning at a private bilingual school in 2021? The teachers displayed mixed attitudes towards the hybrid period being a positive experience. Most of the teachers felt overwhelmed by the workload, planning, and imparting virtual classes, but they indicated that they had good school support. For research question number 2, To what extent did teachers feel comfortable with using technology for giving classes in a hybrid learning model? Many teachers had a relatively positive attitude towards the use of a learning management system, but they felt that having classes with a video call application was stressful or difficult. And over half of the teachers felt comfortable using technological tools in the classroom, and they relied on their technological skills. They felt good about their technological skills. Research question number 3: how do teachers perceive that the hybrid learning affects the delivery of the lesson and the overall outcome? Teachers revealed that their students understood what they were taught, but there was an interesting difference between the virtual and the in person group. And teachers indicated that dividing the attention between online and in person students was a challenge. For the conclusion, there are mixed perceptions about the hybrid period being a negative or positive experience among teachers. A factor that affected the teachers' attitudes was technology and managing it within the classes. The research gave an important insight into the role that technology played during and after the COVID 19 crisis and the impact that school support had during the challenging period. And the results revealed that having a combination of online students and in person students in a classroom at the same time can pose a challenging situation for teachers, not only in terms of management, but when it comes to planning, technology, and delivering lessons. For recommendations, the same study could be conducted in a different school, maybe a public school instead of a private school with limited resources and access to technology. Or it can even be conducted by viewing students' perceptions instead of teachers' perceptions. A different instrument could be used: interviews, observations in the classrooms. Another recommendation is to have emergency lesson plans at schools for hybrid situations, or even as teachers are doing their regular planning, weekly plannings or annual plannings, they could have for the same curriculum a plan aside for a hybrid situation. And lastly, the implications. The hybrid period was a relatively stressful period. Technology contributed to that stress. It was a positive experience for many teachers, and hybrid classes affected how students learned. And that was all. Thank you very much. I don't know if I went a little too fast.
Thank you very much, dear Laura. Now, we would like to ask you some questions. Professor Jimenez?
Should I stop sharing my screen or should I continue?
Yes, it's okay that you stop sharing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Laura, for that wonderful presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, it definitely brought some memories from that time 5 years ago already. So I found it very interesting that you focused on the perceptions of these teachers, and the questions were very specific to gather that kind of information. But I would like to know if you considered asking them, for instance, about their teaching practices during that time, or even from some of the statements in your scale, why, wait a minute, I took here some notes,
Yes.
why they consider that some of the students in person were more successful than online, like based on what they base those thoughts.
Um, so because it was a Likert scale and I didn't have like open questions for them to just give me their opinions,
Mhm.
I didn't think of asking them those kind of questions. Could you repeat the first part that you asked me uh,
Sure.
about their practice? Something about the practice.
Exactly. Other aspects that might be also interesting to find out, I think, might have included like what techniques, what pedagogical techniques or strategies were they using, considering the fact that handling a group online and another in person might have been very stressful as they responded. But how were they doing that? How did they juggle both groups, both bubbles, as they mentioned?
Yeah. I To be honest, I didn't consider adding a question of like of the practice of, like you say, juggling both groups. I didn't consider that. I focused and I created the instrument, um, actually based on my experience of what I experienced during the time of the managing both groups. So it was kind of like it was born from my experience of what it was for me to be in a classroom during that time,
Hmm.
and all the things that I experienced. That's how the instrument was born.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how I created the Likert scale.
Great. It's great that you base it on your own experience. So personally, then, how did you manage? Because I didn't really have the opportunity to have a bubble system or a hybrid system in my time during the pandemic, and I'm very curious about that. If you can share
Okay.
maybe a few ideas
Yes,
that you
yes.
remember.
So in the school, it was a very privileged school. So there were teachers and there were teacher aides.
Mm,
So mostly the teacher was imparting the lessons for the presential students, and the teacher aide was uh, focusing on the students online. And sometimes if it was something very specific that you had to teach to the virtual students, you switched with the teacher's aide.
okay, so
Yeah.
that definitely would have made
Yeah, it
a
made
difference.
it very, very, very easy.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Laura.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor Jimenez. Now, Professor Salimben, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, this was a very interesting topic. Um, so, based on your experience, Lara, I want to know, in your opinion, I also considering this data, do you think that schools could implement hybrid lessons in the future? Are there any factors, for example, I don't know, students' age or technological skills? What factors do you think that have to be taken into account in order to implement this in schools? Or do you think that hybrid lessons are probably not good for schools?
Okay. Yes. They could definitely be implemented in the future at crisis-free times, absolutely. But and I think that number one, teacher training is crucial, because a teacher cannot be just asked to impart hybrid classes without any training. And I think that, like you mentioned, the age is very important. uh, Adults that are more prepared to have like an attention span, a longer attention span, and a better like predisposition to be sitting maybe in front of a computer, or to have the patience for the teacher to be dividing their attention between them and waiting for the teacher to focus on the other group now. I think that it's more suited for adults than for maybe children, that children are more spontaneous, and they just respond to whatever comes to their way at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Salimben. Well, that I was going to ask something similar. Um,
Okay.
if what suggestions you can give regarding the use of this hybrid model in a non-pandemic environment, but you have answered that. So I would like to ask you, where do you would you advise to teach teachers how to work in this environment? More for in-service training at school, or at the teacher training school, being a teacher training institute or university. So where do you think this training should be carried out?
I think that at university it could be a good place to start, because this is something that could happen anytime, like it happened in the real world. So it's not something that you can just sign up to and go and say, okay, I think I want to train for hybrid learning, because like it happened in the real world, it happened unexpectedly. So if teachers in their preparation to become teachers at university, they can have at least an introduction to hybrid learning or hybrid teaching, they could have that. That is a plus. That is something that could be very beneficial for teachers.
Thank you very much, Laura. I don't have any further questions. So now we are going to use some moments to talk about your work. So I would like to invite everyone to leave the virtual room for a little while. Ahora la mesa va a dedicarse a deliberar acerca del trabajo final de Laura. Entonces queremos invitarles a abandonar la sala durante unos momentos.
Resuming.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Well, first of all, congratulations, Licenciada Velazquez. It's a pleasure to have you among us. You've got a 4 as your score for this work. And again, congratulations, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it so much. I am so happy, and finally I can call myself a licenciada. This was long overdue, and I am so happy with the grade that you gave me, and I can't contain my excitement. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Professors.
Thank you.
Nam-
I want to say sorry. Professor Salim Ben, she helped me. You helped me so much throughout the process, and it was uh, it was a roller coaster, because you know how much, like, you know how I was at some point, and then I stopped, and then I continued. So it was a roller coaster in my life, and to be here now and to have this done, it's because of you also, and also because of Luca that is there listening.
Thank you.
So, and
You are here. That's the important thing.
thank you. Also, my parents, my dad and my mom that's not here, but thank you very much with all my heart.
Okay, let me finish in Spanish and then we can continue talking.
Okay.
Esto ha sido la defensa de tesis de Laura Velázquez. Estamos con una flamante licenciada en lengua inglesa y estamos felices con ella.